Good evening, everybody. This is Darius Assemi, your host at GV Wire's Unfiltered podcast, along with my co-host, Dr. Bill McEwen. I'm sorry, News Doctor, Doctor of News, Bill McEwen. We have an awesome special guest this evening. We've talked a lot about education, and who cares about education? A lot of people do, and everybody should. And we're going to discuss that. Why should people give a shit? No, sheet about education. SHEEATPHUQY. The last five are silent. But our special guest tonight, Dr. Eimear O'Brien, one of the three doctors that is trying to, well, one of the two doctors that is trying to unseat Michelle Colfer, our current superintendent of schools at Fresno County Office of Ed. We had a fantastic forum last night with all three. I moderated that. Several clips of that are available on GV Wire as we speak, and more to come in the days to come. Very fascinating stuff, some controversial, some contentious, and of course, as in GV Wire style, we're fact-checking a lot of the stuff, and some of it I'm going to show with you tonight. Some of the accusations made, are they true or not? So stay tuned, and you're going to hear and see all of this stuff. Very fascinating. For those of you that care about education, about our kids, future of this county, you should stay tuned and listen to the stuff that we got to uncover for you on fact-checking. A lot of important fact-checking stuff we did. And of course, Dr. Eimear O'Brien, who just parachuted back to Fresno out of a conference in, is it a Mars? No.
Sacramento.
No. Sacramento. I'm sorry, Sacramento. Okay. And you're going to tell us all about that conference. What was it about? Why did you go? And what did you learn? And how will our students hopefully benefit from that? But before we get into all of that great, juicy stuff, let's talk about the weather. We have some cool weather coming from you. I'm sorry, I mean warmer weather coming from you. Triple digits. Now, you wouldn't know you're living in Fresno unless you've had triple digits in February. I'm not February, March. I mean, not March. I mean, April. I mean, May, triple digits. And Bill McEwen will correct me if I say that this is the first triple digit day we've had this year, because I thought we had a warm spell about a month ago, and I'm not sure if we hit triple digits or not, but here it is. How would you describe your motivation to vote in the June 2nd primary for anything? 89% of folks said highly motivated. Voting is a right that shouldn't be taken for granted. So it's good news. Fresno County is getting armed, is getting educated, and getting ready to vote in about exactly 4 weeks from today. What's your reaction to the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling on the Voting Rights Act? 68% said the right verdict, congressional districts should not be drawn based on race. Almost 32% of you said this will weaken the voting power of minorities. More information on that on GV Wire. We're going to go to the Middle East for a few minutes. Israeli strikes kill 3 Palestinians, including a child in Gaza. Israel also demolished a school in southern Lebanon a few weeks ago, or a few days ago, I should say. Pakistan says it helped Iranian crew from ship that United States seized. Iran expert Trita Parsi, who heads the Quincy Institute in Washington, D.C., who has been opining on this war, says Trump's blockade strategy will ruin what could have been victory. For more of that, go to GBY. We cover a lot of Trita Parsi, relatively balanced. Everybody, by the way, has their own perspective. This is through his lens, and it's a very interesting lens. Fox News has their own lens. CNN has their own. MSNBC has their own. So don't get hung up on, oh my gosh, is this true or not? This is his perspective. And if you find it interesting, you keep on reading him. If you don't find it interesting, I'm sure you won't. Oil prices slide 3% as fragile U.S.-Iran ceasefire holds. Ship passes through Straits of Hormuz. President Trump just now, this happened, I think, an hour ago. If we have that slide, Eric or Paul, about he is doing a temporary block. No, I'm stopping everything, removing the blockade to see if we can get to a peaceful if the United States and President Trump can get to a peaceful resolution with the Iranians. Eric is messaging me right now whether we have that article coming up, at least the front cover of that New York Times article that you can read at or on GB Wire. They're looking forward right now. Eric, Paul, no, I went over that with Paul. If you can just track it down, please, that would be great. We'll put it up before the end of the show.
And Darius, yeah, that story on Trump suspending the blockade in hopes of further negotiations, that's on the homepage at GV Wire, right in the latest section.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bill, for that. Okay, regular gas price. Paul Marshall, our own GV Wire graphic artist, produced this. Let's put up slide 10. There it is. Current average, regular, medium, and premium, and of course, diesel. Fresno, California average gas prices compared to a year ago. So I guess we could say we have a lot of inflation going away. I'm sorry, inflation is not going away. I said it wrong. A year ago, $4.80 for regular on average, and now $6. $6 is more than $4.80, which means we've had inflation or massive inflation in gas prices. And I know President Trump promised gas prices will cut it by some number, 20, 30, 40, 50%, within a year after he took office. And here are the facts, folks. There it is. Trump says operation to reopen Strait of Hormuz will be paused. So the United States is not going to go after militarily. I haven't read the article, just read the headline. Thank you for that, Paul and Eric. Do we, by the way, have a video on President Trump's promise about inflation and energy prices getting cut in half? If we have that, we're going to get, hopefully we'll get to that before the end of the show. Eric is typing away. Okay, Congress passes another short-term extension of expiring surveillance law. Let's get that on the screen, please. There we go. No, not that one, the 11, the one before that. Thank you. Expiring surveillance laws are extended by your Congress, by our Congress. More surveillance on Americans by government. Please pay attention to that for those of you that don't like government surveying and getting into all kinds of stuff that shouldn't be. 7 midterm elections on Tuesday, which is today, will test President Trump's power in Indiana. That's the slide. Let's go to 12, please. Okay. And then getting back to California now, before we get into Fresno and education. This is the next one is Bill Becerra, which was former Attorney General.
Xavier Becerra, the former Attorney General and Secretary of Health in the Biden administration. He was mired in going nowhere. But when Eric Swalwell got involved, well, his sex scandal was revealed. He was knocked out of Congress, or he knocked himself out of Congress, pulled his campaign. A lot of speculation who's going to benefit on that. People saying Katie Porter would, Tom Steyer would, but the big benefactor has been Becerra, and he now has 18% support in the latest poll that came out Monday. That tied him with Steve Hilton, the Republican that's generally been leading the polls all along. And then you also see there Tom Steyer. He's still at 12%. So the other takeaway in this poll is Antonio Villaraigosa, the former LA mayor, and Tony Thurmond, the state superintendent of public schools or public instruction. They're at 3% and 2%. So I would see either they drop out of the race, they have refused to do so far, or their supporters will cast their votes elsewhere as we get towards June 2nd, and the mail ballots are already going out. You can vote already in this election down in Fresno, anyway, down at the clerk's office. So,
All right.
big poll, and we're getting more clarity, Darius. This has been a crazy race.
Bill, could you repeat again? Tom Steyer, he spent over 100 million from what I understand.
Yeah, he's at 12%. He's flatlined. To me, people have taken a look at him. And they've made up their mind. The other thing that's happened is previously the most support, or the highest number, was for undecided voters. So the undecided voter total is going down as people are gravitating towards candidates.
Bill, Becerra has put, is it a few $1 million minimum money?
Yeah, he hasn't had a lot of fundraising. The other thing is Tom Steyer got, when Swalwell dropped out, he got the endorsement of the California Teachers Association. Looks like their power is somewhat muted in this election.
Good. Tell us about Tom Steyer's brother now, quickly, so we can get to.
Oh, yeah. Well, so Jim Steyer, he heads Common Sense Media. People know that because they've jumped into a lot of issues about protecting children online. It's a powerful organization. It's a nonprofit. They sponsor a lot of bills in Sacramento. So Jim Steyer, he heads Common Sense Media, and with this big battle about AI regulation, you kind of wonder if Tom Steyer did win, would Jim Steyer, have a bigger voice in the future of AI in the state of California?
Okay. California's hottest congressional races could decide who rules the House. Bill?
Well, absolutely. And, the big one is CD 22. You have Randy Villegas from Visalia. He teaches at COS. He's a Visalia Unified Trustee. You have the incumbent, David Valadeo. He's beaten the odds many times. It's a Democratic district. Yet a Republican often wins. And then you have Jasmeet Baines from Delano. She's a physician. I would say she's a moderate Democrat. This race is a big one. Tons of money being poured into it, and everybody across the nation is taking a look at it. And also the National Democratic Congressional Committee came out this week and has endorsed Baines. Previously, they were staying out of the race.
Got it. Thank you, Bill. Now we're going to go to a first of the series of videos we're going to play tonight, or show you tonight. This is a report from Council Member Mike Rabasi on what's going on inside city of Fresno. And then the other videos are about fact-checking stuff from last night and more. Okay, let's play Mike's report.
Good evening. I'm Mike Carbasi, council member for District 2, Northwest Fresno. I'm pleased to provide an exclusive city council preview just for our unfiltered audience on GV Wire. This Thursday, May 7th, we have a council meeting. As a reminder, you can tune in and watch us. We're on YouTube. Please do send us your comments. We want to hear from you. Pretty packed agenda, but a lot of it are routine things that I'll try and break down for you. For example, for anyone living west of Highway 99 in those neighborhoods, Ashland Avenue, really important thoroughfare. We want to be able to help you get east-west. We're going to be acquiring what's called an easement, so we can increase capacity on Ashland between Polk and Cornelia. That's really important. We're ratifying a new contract with the county on EMS services and dispatch, so we can basically have dispatch for our fire and medical calls with the county, something super important because when you're facing a critical time and you call 911, you want to make sure there's a proper response to protect your life and your property, and we're committed to doing that. The homelessness issue is an ongoing problem. We're renewing a contract to continue working on rapid rehousing with a local provider. It's super important as we get people to transition from being homeless to back on their own 2 feet. That long process, rapid rehire, is a critical part of that, and we're continuing that work. Something really personal to me in Northwest Fresno that impacts everyone is the extension of the Eaton Trail. We have an item on the agenda to expand our partnership with the San Joaquin River Conservancy. This is a state agency. We're committed to opening up access to the river. It's a beautiful gem in our backyard. The governor was just here a couple weeks ago announcing part of this river parkway is going to be converted to a state park, one of 3 new state parks before he leaves office. Very exciting, very promising. It's going to put Fresno back on the map. Excited to do that in partnership with the River Conservancy. Be on the lookout. We have 2 more council meetings in May. May 14th, Mayor is releasing the 2026-2027 budget. This is really half the job of being a council member. The mayor presents a budget. We have to negotiate and approve it out in the public through all these meetings we're going to have in June. We encourage you to participate. Let us know what your priorities are. This is the time to make that happen. Last meeting of the month is going to be May 21st, starting at 9 a.m. We encourage you again, participate. Let us know how you feel. We want to make sure we serve you. I'm Mike Carbasi. Back to you, Darius.
That was a great update. By the way, the budget, which is over $2 billion, being decided and cooked right now in the city of Fresno. Any comments on that? Mike, at least Mike wants to hear from you. Most of you that are his constituents have his email address. I don't have it here. Mike Carbasi at fresno.gov or something along those lines. But that was a really good update. Thank you, Mike, for that update. And of course, Mike Schwab on land said, vote for Mike, but I'm prejudiced. Mike, you have to live in the district to vote for him. He's running for supervisor. Okay, let's talking about City of Fresno. Judge, and I wish Mike was here tonight because I want to ask him this question. Judge says City of Fresno hid its budget process from the public. A judge found that the City of Fresno budget process to have violated state transparency laws from 2018 to 2023. The First Amendment Coalition said the lawsuit could have been avoided if the city had committed to abandoning its secretive committee. That's pretty crappy. It's really crappy. Bill, we should probably ask Mayor Dyer to join us next week, if he would, next week or the week after, to address this. Court did not award penalties, but the city may be liable for attorney's fees.
So, Darius, the key thing here is this was a ruling on what they were doing through 2023 for about a 5-year period. They did a subcommittee, and they said with the subcommittee, it didn't have to be public, it wasn't under the Brown Act. And they said the reason was because Fresno has a strong mayor form of government. You will note that all other cities in California with strong mayor form of government did everything out in the public. There was a big to-do about this, and of course the legal challenge. So since 2024, the city of Fresno has been doing it the right way. The negotiations out in the public with the ability to comment on anything in the budget. So again, it stays the same. The mayor proposes the budget, then it goes to the council. they hone in on their details. Of course, they have things they want for their districts. They have needs that constituents communicate to them. It's now being done in public. So
Got it.
that's a good thing. This court case is left over, and I think the big deal is when we find out how much taxpayer money has to go to pay for the attorney fees from the First Amendment Coalition.
Got it. Thank you, Bill. A couple other quick things before we bring Dr. Eimear O'Brien to on the stage. Back to the feds. House ethics officials probe Costa, Congressman Jim Costa, but dismiss case alleging wrongdoing with interns. Dismiss the case. So this has been kind of floating around the newsrooms most of the afternoon, but congressional ethics offices reviewed allegations involving Representative Jim Costa and interns, and former staffer accused Costa of inappropriate behavior at a 2020 Washington event. Ethics officials ultimately took no action and recommended dismissal of the complaint. Congressman Costa may be joining us in a few weeks on an upcoming episode of Unfiltered. Okay, and today is what? Cinco de Mayo. Okay, so Americans might love Cinco de Mayo, but few know what they're really celebrating. Cinco de Mayo doesn't mark Mexican Independence Day. It's meaning to commemorate the Battle of Puebla, which was fought between the Mexicans and French armies in 1862. So I'm going to now enjoy a drink. In celebration of Cinco de Mayo with my lemon, or lemon actually. Spice, very nice. I can't tell you what's in that. You have to guess. It could be water. It could be Italian sparkling mineral water from Kirkland. It could be Perrier, or it could be whatever you think it was. Anyhow, so thank you, Paul, for creating that graphic for Cinco de Mayo. That article is on GB Wire. Before, actually, let's bring Dr. O'Brien on the screen with us, but I want to play the video first. Dr. O'Brien, if you can be patient. One video is not related to some of the issues going back and forth with you. It's about an endorsement. Current Superintendent Dr. Michelle Colfer said that Misty Her endorsed her. GBY did fact check last night and found something different. So let's play that video, please.
Well, you've got kids in third grade. They've been in our system, Darius, for 6 years. Preschool, TK, kindergarten, first, second, third.
What would you do with Fresno Unified? If you were superintendent today, again, you're not a superintendent of Fresno Unified. What would you do with Fresno Unified?
One of the roles of the county superintendent, and I would have the same relationship with Misty Her. I've already talked to her.
By the way, Misty has endorsed Michelle.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I have met with Misty Her and her deputy, Ben Droddy, and we've talked about the fact that if I become the county superintendent, we will have a very good relationship.
Okay, that was just a small clip from that from the forum last night, and then do we have the stuff that we got from Fresno Unified?
So what, Darius, we had a statement that we received today from Fresno Unified, and it says, to avoid any inaccurate misrepresentation.
Here it is. It's on your screen.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Bill, you want to finish reading it?
So on behalf of our board or district superintendent, Her is staying neutral from endorsing any political candidate. Superintendent Her's focus remains where it has always been, on our students and our community.
Okay, great. So first fact check, GV Wire, Misty here did not endorse Michelle Kofer, Dr. Michelle Kofer, as she had made a statement last time. Maybe she had she misspoken or she wasn't quite sure, but fact
So
checked.
Darius,
And oh, I'm sorry, and Misty here actually did not endorse,
yeah,
or may have
and
endorsed, but reversed it. Okay, Bill.
so, and Michelle does have that endorsement listed on her website.
Okay, on our website. Is that what you said, Bill?
On her website,
On her
yes.
website, yes. Everybody's got, all three candidates have got an endorsement list. Is Misty here on her endorsement list? Do you know that, Bill? Or Paul, or
Yes,
Eric?
we went and looked it up today. It's right there.
So Misty is on her, is on Michelle's website?
That's how it's portrayed, but we
Got
have
it.
this statement from the Fresno Unified countering that.
Got it. Okay, that's first of several videos we're gonna play for you. We can probably move away from that. Next, I want to play video number 3, where Dr. Johnny Alvarado comments on COVID numbers.
And just to be clear, I did make the point, it's percent decrease in academic achievement in language arts and math. When you do percent decrease, it's a different formula. And I use that formula wherever I go. I used that formula when I was the principal at Bullard High School, which, by the way, we also experienced COVID. But when you think about what we did the year after COVID, when we took that assessment, we increased our reading and writing scores, a percent increase of 14% and a percent increase on 30%. You can find that information in the tab that Dr. O'Brien provided on her website. So when I'm talking about 3 to 5%, yeah, that's probably accurate. But the percent decrease takes into effect where you started, where you finished, and what was that percent decrease in those two numbers. That's what I'm referring to. So we're both right.
Okay, now let's put up slide number, actually we start with slide number 33. Some of the data we uncovered, GV Wire's team, fact check team, Clovis Unified District's district-wide proficiency, there we go, thank you, under Superintendent O'Brien, actual tenure 2017 to 2023. So we can see that before COVID, the numbers actually increased both on ELA, English Language Arts, and in math. And then post-COVID, post-2019, they dropped and kind of plateaued around in the mid-60s on ELA and around 49% on math, and started climbing in up to 2023 at 51%. And then so then we're going to go to Bullard. So this is, so if you look at just the COVID numbers, yes, the numbers did decrease. But I'm going to assume they probably decreased for every school district. And we're going to ask Dr. O'Brien to comment on that here in a minute. And the other point that Dr. Alvarado brought up is slide 32. Let's put that slide up. Again, where you start the clock matters. Okay. So yes, and he said there was an 18% delta at Bullard on ELA from 2022 to 2025. Yes, and that is a true statement. But he took the lowest number of the year on record, lowest year on record, 2022 number, just coming out of COVID, and compared that to 2025. If you look at the previous 4 bars, 2017, 2018, 2019, the number was actually 48, 47, 46%, jumped in 2021 to 54.5%, but that was an anomaly, by the way. And we're going to show that here in a minute. GV Wire experts, including Jeffrey Schaefer, did a great analysis, find a lot of this fantastic data, and we're analyzing it and breaking it down for you. So yes, the delta from 38 to 52 is 18%, but that was a really an anomaly low number. Okay, now let's put slide 31 up. And there is an opt-in. As you see, 2021, 2022, opt-in COVID testing. So people that wanted to get tested opted in. People that didn't want to get tested didn't opt in. So that was an anomaly, a very high number anomaly for that year. Now let's go back to slide 32. There you go. So we can see that the opt-in number in 2021, 54.5%, had a big jump from 45%, but that was just an opt-in number. So it really can't be analyzed because the data, the number of people, the people that were actually asked to do the testing, and I'm not, again, I'm not a Bullard High School, I'm not an educator. I'm just taking the data that was presented to me this afternoon by our expert team, shows that it was an anomaly for opt-in instead of everybody. And I'm going to ask Eimear to opine on that now. Is most of these tests are not opt-in, is that correct?
So a couple of things I just want to explain to everybody. In 2020, obviously, if you recall, March 2020, we all that was the peak of everything. So there was no state testing in like May, June of 2020. But by the time May, June of 2021 rolled around, think about it. For us in Clovis Unified, I had 22,000 students still at home. So the state does not allow you to conduct standardized state testing unless the students are in school in a secure testing environment. And the state gave everybody an option. So when we were in Clovis, we thought, well, why would we test 22,000 when the other 22,000 was actually right down the middle? We're at home. Why don't we wait till everybody comes back, and in September we want to test all our students with our own, we were able to use our own tests so that we could establish the baseline, see what the damage was, and we could test all of our students. So in the state of California, 76%, I believe that's the number, of school districts opted to do what we did, not to conduct state testing, because the students who did come to school was a much smaller number of students. And then, you're getting a skewed information. Like, what can you do with that when you have a smaller number and you're not testing all the others? So that's what happened at Bullard. I was actually really surprised that Bullard tested, and, but regardless of that, the state puts on their database, like a caution box saying this data should not be interpreted for, comparison purposes, because it was a very, like you call it, an anomaly, and the test was different. It was shorter, and we had a much smaller number of students being tested.
Got it. I got a lot of questions for you, and I'm sure Bill does as well. But so I'm going to play one last video on Fresno versus Clovis numbers. Let's play video number 4, please.
I would reference Dr. O'Brien's data for her tenure at Clovis Unified School District, which ELA scores dropped by a decreased percentage of 6% and math dropped by a decreased percentage of 12%. If we are not going to be measured on our results, and I ask everybody to go to my website, research me. I have always had double-digit growth in academic achievement, whether it's been at an elementary school, a middle school, a high school, a district office, throughout Fresno County.
Okay, Eimear, how do you address that?
So let's just say I'm a principal of a school and my kids are at 10% proficiency in reading. In other words, 10% of my kids are proficient. And on a test, they go up to 15%. So in the state of California, we always would say, communicate that to our parents as we went up 10%, or we went up 5% proficiency, because we can clearly see that 5 more students out of every 100 went up. we would never say, because that's equivalent to what Dr. Alvarado was saying, that I could get up on the stage and say we had a 50% increase. When you convey it that way, small gains appear exponentially larger. And so in the state of California, in my 40 years, and particularly my 30 years here in California, we have never used the mathematical percentage growth that Johnny Alvarado is using. So I don't know what he means by he always uses it. I have actually never seen it used like that. And so the other thing is on his campaign materials, he has different numbers. He has, I believe, it's 7 point something drop in ELA and 14, I think, in math. So let me just tell you, it's very simple. We keep it very simple for everybody to understand. When all was said and done, we were increasing under my superintendency, and then there was a drop when half of my kids were at home. And I credit our staff, our educational team, with minimizing the learning loss. To think that we had 22,000 kids at home and we only went down 3.5% in language arts, I consider that a win. And saying that we only went down 5.5% in math. So from I came in to the time I left, that's how much we went down.
Let's show the Clovis unified chart, the stuff that Eimear was just talking about. If we, I think there we go, right there. Is that what you were referring to, Eimear?
Yeah, you can clearly see, and they're quite small on my screen, but you can clearly see that, we were going up, we were making gains, and then, obviously everybody experienced a dip at the time. And then what we did was reassessed everybody to establish where the losses were. And we actually created a very big intervention plan so that we could begin to start building our kids back up again.
Got it. Okay.
So, Darius, I'll just say one more thing.
Please.
Look, we're talking about the education of our kids in this community. There's a lot of signs out there right now. I think the most important issue right now in this election is education. As school goes, so goes our community. And I hear people like Mike Corbasi concerned about having an educated workforce. And so it really is, to me, very disingenuous, really actually shameful to mislead our community with data that is being presented in a way that's confusing, that is it's not consistent with how we ever communicate data in any of our districts to our public. And so I was very disappointed that Dr. Alvarado did that, because I've had people saying, wow, I didn't know you guys went down 14 points in math. And I was confused. No, we didn't. Where are you getting that information? And so, look, our parents expect us to be honest and truthful. And, I'll just say, I recently just created some tabs on my website, and they're very fresh. I haven't even seen them myself, but they're going up. Maybe they went up today. I was very busy today, but I did it out of a moral sense of our community needs to have the truth presented to them. And I never thought I would have to do that, but I felt compelled to do it. So that's why I put it up.
Got it. Okay, so let me just ask you a couple of questions. Why are you doing this? Why? I mean, we have Dr. Michelle Cantwell Cofer. I'm gonna call her Michelle. Michelle, who's been there 4 years, been in leadership for over 20 years. I don't have the exact number. Why are you trying to unseat an incumbent who's been in Clovis County schools, has been a superintendent for 4 years, almost 4 years, and worked for Jimmy Vino for X number of years, and has been in leadership? What's compelling you, and why should people care about this position? Well, actually, that's my second question.
Okay.
The first question is, why are you doing this?
Right.
Against an incumbent? You're trying to
question.
unseat an incumbent. Kind of explain to the audience, why should they care? But really, why should they care about voting for you?
Right. Well,
Because I'm going to ask the same question of Michelle next week.
right.
Hopefully,
Good.
hopefully she'll
Uh,
show up on our
I am
program.
a very transparent and honest person. And I will tell you that when I retired, I took care of some personal family issues that my family needed me at the time. And when I came back 6 months later and I started contemplating my next steps, I knew that I wanted to continue making a difference in education. I started exploring opportunities to go back to work. I wanted to, I'm a worker. I like going to work. And there were opportunities to go up to Sacramento, consultancy opportunities, but it wasn't really firing me up. And I need to be very fired up to have the passion that this kind of work takes. And to be very frank, as I started thinking about, I want to stay in my own home county. I considered providing mentorship for superintendents. I actually had approached Dr. Kofer about doing that. And at the time, she, for whatever reasons, wasn't very interested in me helping there. And I will tell you that I had a conversation with Larry Powell, and he said, "Would you never consider, running to be a county superintendent?" And I said, "Well, first of all, I don't relish running in a."
I'm sorry, Eimear.
Yeah.
We have about
Yeah,
30
I'll get
more
to the
seconds
point.
because I got a lot more other questions for you.
The question is, why am I doing it? It was felt very much that that the leadership we had in place was not matching what we need in a leader at the county.
What
And
do you
so
think you
I
can bring
spent
in?
about 8 months talking to people, thinking about it, researching more about the position, and I realized I would love to do this job. It was uncomfortable, I will tell you, to unseat an incumbent. I don't particularly relish that part of this, but I decided to do it because I felt that it was the right thing to do to give back to this community, given the fact that I have an enormous amount of experience and a huge skill set in leadership, the kind
So
of leadership that's needed.
Why should again? What's the difference between you and Dr. Kofer? Michelle.
Well, I think there's a lot of differences.
And I want
First
to talk.
of all,
I want you to talk about literacy because we talked a
right,
lot about
yeah.
that last night, and I want the audience, the unfiltered audience, to go. Okay, does she understand literacy? Why should we care about literacy first? Does Eimear know how to deal with literacy? Again, you're not a superintendent of a school district.
Yeah,
You're applying for
you're
the
right.
job of the superintendent of the entire county, which means you control the budget and a few other things, but you don't have all the levers. So explain to us what's the
Well,
difference in terms of literacy or really any other factor, but literacy being the
if you want me
number
to
one issue, at
focus
least
on
for me.
literacy, yeah, I can do that because I have an enormous amount of experience in literacy. Obviously, I think people know I've been in education for 40 years, and 20 of those years I was teaching reading and also the foundations of math to young kids in kind of the TK through third grade arena. I was trained, very highly trained in Ireland, which I mentioned last night, as a highly successful country in terms of education. I received an outstanding training rooted in the science of reading, which is used exclusively in Ireland. And then I taught there for 10 years and then taught for another 10 years. And I was always very passionate but also very confused why we have such a large number of students around our county not attaining reading standards. And as I moved through my career and did my master's on this topic and ultimately, decided to run for this position, the main reason, as I thought about what problem could this role solve that would make the biggest impact? And there's no doubt in my mind that when we have 6 out of 10 kids not reading, we need to get our kids reading because it's affecting their abilities to access other things like math. And I can help.
We have a few minutes left.
Superintendents.
We only have a few minutes left.
Okay.
Why should people go? You know what? Michelle Kofer has been there a long time. She's done. Okay. We can't tell if there's a difference, bad or better or not. Why should they go, you know what, we're gonna unseat an incumbent and vote for Eimear? Please break it down to what a parent that's watching
Right.
Go,
So
oh, you
this
know
is
what?
what
The
I will
difference
say
between
to our
Eimear and
parents.
Michelle is this. Well, why should people care?
This is what I'll say to our parents. When you prioritize something like reading, you better have a plan. You better have a
Okay,
deep
what's your
knowledge
plan?
and passion. And
What's your plan?
I just got back right now from Sacramento, up listening to a summit today about the Golden State Literacy Plan, which I've been talking about for the last 10 months,
Okay,
but
what is
neither
it?
of my
Kind of break
opponents
it
have
down.
talked about it.
What
It
is
is a return to it was returning all of our districts in Fresno County to using the science of reading teaching methodologies, which are proven. We had moved away from it, and it really is the main reason that literacy rates have gone down, because our teachers have not been trained in it through no fault of their own, and the textbooks haven't been rooted in the science of reading and the general methodologies. We haven't been using this, and I have a huge passion, like a huge passion, and a lot of knowledge and experience to be able to utilize this position to be able to positively influence and support our district superintendents to put systems in place that can help their teachers be successful, their kids be successful, and their districts continue being successful when all these grant dollars are gone. I heard today they're going in 2029. So we're on a timeline already.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this question in another way. Everybody on the stage last night said they got a plan. They got a plan. They're going to fix this. They're going to fix literacy. They're going to help our kids put it together. Specifically, what separates you from the other two and from the incumbent? What is your plan? And by the way, there's a couple of comments that came in. I want to, because they weave into this question. Cameron Husted said, so you're taking Sacramento's plan, not your own. And Luann Ramirez McCaslin said says the difference between Dr. O'Brien and others is her massive classroom experience in teaching. Her opponents do not have the same amount of experience in the classroom. They were too busy moving up or around. Quit interrupting, sir. I'm sorry, that's my podcast. I can interrupt whenever I want. But Eimear,
so okay,
please,
I'll answer the
literacy
question.
is one of the most important things. I think everybody understands that. Without this, if you can't read, nothing else matters. What it separates you, distinguishes you from on literacy versus the incumbent Michelle Kofer and Johnny Alvarado?
Well, I do not believe in producing 100-day plan or any kind of plan immediately, because I'm a collaborative leader and I will be sitting down with the universities who prepare our teachers. I had a long conversation up in Sacramento today about what monies are there, what changes have happened up there, and we will come together, Darius, and evaluate what we can do around preparing our teachers, come up with a plan, look at all the funding sources that we have, take feedback from all the different stakeholders, our district superintendents, our university folks, our teacher preparation. I think I said that. Putting us all together and coming up with a plan so that we can train our teachers, both the ones coming into the system and the ones in the system, and then making sure that our district superintendents have all the tools and all the resources they need to train their teachers and to adopt new instruction materials and to have ongoing coaching. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to this. It's not just a little plan you put on paper, and you have to bring in feedback from everybody, because otherwise it can't be Eimear's plan. It has to be all of the people together, because otherwise people don't buy into it. If I come in and bop everybody on the head and say, here's my plan, that's not going to work. That's not how you lead, Darius. You lead through, you lead through bringing consensus around a table. And
so
by the way,
is that what Michelle is doing right now? How is Dr. Kofer managing? Do you know that you're going to be different from her?
My honest opinion is that there has been very little momentum at all around the science of reading until very recently, since I've been talking about it. I know that I will just say there hasn't been the same amount of passion and interest and conversation, and therefore things are not happening. There are isolated districts who are doing their own thing around the science of reading, like Central and like Sanger, but there isn't a county-wide coordinated approach that is meeting the urgency of the fact that 6 out of 10 of our kids are not reading. And quite frankly, Dr. Kofer gave herself an A+ report card with, celebrating it's a 1.1% annual growth in reading. At this rate, it'll take some districts 15 to 20 years just to get to the state average, which in itself is a failing grade.
Eimear,
So maybe that explains it.
let me, okay, I'm going to stop you one more time here. You make an excellent point. And I asked that of Dr. Kofer last night. About 1.5%, 1.1% growth rate in reading. Is that satisfactory? Because you've talked about a trajectory that we're on the right path. We just need to keep on doing. She said it multiple times last night. And I'm going to ask her this question next Tuesday night, because we've invited her to this show to address some of these. Is 1.5% growth satisfactory? Because all of you guys talked about, I don't have the numbers in front of me, is that half of our 11th graders or 3rd graders cannot read at grade. It's a giant number. How long will it take at 1.5%? You just said it. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years for us to get caught up. It will take 10 years just to get over 50, get over 65 or 70%. So you've talked about, and we're going to ask Michelle that hopefully next week. Are we on the right trajectory? And you talked, please elaborate on this. You talked last night about educating the teachers appropriately, so they have the right tools and the education, whether it's Fresno State or wherever it is, so they can actually do the science of roll out the science of teaching appropriately. Talk about that, because that was a specific item that you said you're going to put a lot of resources on.
The most important factor in any classroom, above all the technology, textbooks, anything else, is the teacher. They are the person who brings everything to life. I have been in some of the most impoverished schools in Clovis and Central. I'll mention Pinedale and I'll mention Teague Elementary. And both of those schools, the teachers have such a positive impact, and you see kids excited about reading. You see teachers, you start seeing the trajectory. Instead of limping along like this, it starts looking more like this, Darius. And it's been proven around the country in multiple states. And actually, I've just been reviewing some data. There are districts around California, and I need to put it together, but I will, where the trajectory has gone like this, and then it's gone like this. So here's the deal. Why would we not do that? Why would we not sit down together and come up with, there's going to be a different plan for Mendota than there is for Fresno Unified, than there is for Pine Ridge. It's going to look different because we have local control. But what I want to do as a district superintendent is I want to be in my car a lot, going out to districts, sitting down with district superintendents, having trusted conversations with them, because I have credibility, I have respect, and I have a track record that warrants that kind of respect, but also because I can share with them. I've been in their shoes. I've been a district superintendent. I know the challenges that they're navigating. I know how to, navigate within the context of having a governing board and maintaining trust with the community and working with your teachers. I've done all that. So I know how to affect change, is maybe what I'm trying to say. It's very nuanced. Leadership matters when you're trying to affect change. It doesn't happen overnight. And it doesn't happen, Darius, if the district superintendent doesn't feel that county superintendent is somebody who brings value, that they're going to carve out time to sit down and listen to what that county superintendent has. That's why integrity and credibility are so important in the role of the county superintendency, because that a district superintendent does not have to meet with their county superintendent if they choose not to. That's a very important thing to know. If the county superintendent says, I want to come and visit you, I want to talk to you, they can choose not to. And I noticed the other day that there was a video with the county meeting of superintendents, and I counted 13 superintendents. That's a lot less than 31. So not all superintendents go to those meetings unless they find value in it.
Those are great points, and I'm looking for a quote that I actually read last night from the chairman of Central Unified that said you were the right person. And I'm gonna track this down here in a minute. You're the right person that came in to fix and turn around Central Unified at the right time. And I'm gonna find the exact quote here shortly.
I remember you said that.
Yeah.
You know, while you're finding it, I want to give you my favorite quote of all time by John Maxwell. He said, and I used it in my interview to become a superintendent when they asked me that, people will not believe in the vision until first they believe in the leader. And you think about anything you've ever wanted to do, if you don't believe in the person who's leading that towards that vision, you won't necessarily believe in the vision. And it frustrates me that people are slow to believe in the vision for Fresno County to be a hub of excellence. And one of the things that got talked a lot about last night are barriers. And sometimes I feel that that barriers are mentioned way too often. When kids come into school, a lot of those barriers, we're removing the barrier of food, we're removing the barrier of love and safety, and we can overcome a lot of barriers, such as, you know, maybe vocabulary deficiencies and things like that. But we can't control everything. We can't control poverty, we can't control substance abuse in the home, but we can control the high quality educational experience we give our kids during the day. And like I said, when I walked over to Teague Elementary, one of the most impoverished schools in Central Unified, there was high quality instruction happening in the class. And those kids are learning and they're happy and they're coming to school. And when you have a situation like that, things like classroom behaviors become much less of an issue than they do when kids aren't experiencing success.
You know, I found that quote, and I'm going to quote President Deep Singh Chan on your interim role. Exact quote unquote, exactly the leadership Central Unified needs at this critical moment. It really hats off to you that you're chairman of your board. You were only there for a few months, and I've heard him talk about you helped turn that district around in a matter of months.
We put some systems in place.
Did you fire a few people, hire a few people, put new systems in place? Is that true?
We put some systems in place. I was responsible for taking, I will just say, because I want to maintain confidentiality, but there was some movement of personnel. And I was also very responsible for creating a new interactive budget that the whole board could look at in a much better and more accurate manner. And they're still using it. It's a budget where you can plug in, let's see what a 3% raise does to all the numbers, how it affects our reserve, so that the board could really evaluate the budget in a much more accurate manner. And then there are other systems that we've put in place that we're still working on.
Eimear, let me ask you brought up transparency basically by putting stuff so that board can actually see what's going on. What measures do you think you would take, or are you thinking, I wish Michelle would do these things as current superintendent of Fresno County Schools? What are the things that you would communicate better or have more transparency with parents in Fresno County?
I do believe that every district needs to be transparent with their community. I used to do something, and I'm not going to take the credit for it. I followed from the previous superintendent, but something called the Spring Update, where we put out to all of our employees and our 7,500 employees exactly where we were in terms of the budget, in terms of the challenges we had. We were building a giant new high school, how that affected the budget. And then we also shared a lot of that information with our entire community during the LCAP process. And so, you know, I've found over the years that when you're transparent, people are a lot more, when they understand how the system works, people are a lot more inclined to be involved and to have positive feedback. I'm hoping to become the county superintendent. When I do, I would like to do something similar with the county about what we are doing at the county, how much money we're spending on services, what those services look like, what our focus is, so that everybody has a better understanding. Because this whole campaign has taught me people have no understanding of what the role of the county superintendent is and what they do. Like, you were even surprised to hear, and I checked the budget today, it's 400 million. You were surprised to hear that there was a budget for 400 million at the county office, or even that there were, 13 to 1500 employees. People don't know that. They don't understand the value that the county office brings, but it is a fantastic resource for our district superintendents.
Great points. I have one other question. By the way, a couple of comments, and I'm going to bring Bill McEwen and Mike Krabasi, who's put a comment on our Facebook feed. Says Eimear is the real deal. She was an amazing superintendent for Clovis Unified. I saw firsthand how she took action to protect kids at Pinedale Elementary, which is in his district currently.
Yes.
She can do great things for Fresno County. So
thank you. I appreciate that, Mike.
Kudos.
Yeah, we worked on a lot of projects together.
I mean, yeah, which is really awesome. I mean, Fresno County Superintendent of Schools has never been on anybody's major radar screen until you got into the race, and now we go, former Clovis Unified School District Superintendent wants to knock off the current incumbent. And let me ask you a question before we go to Bill. Jim Uvino endorsed you this go around.
Yes.
Where Michelle Kofer, Dr. Michelle Kofer, used to work for Jim for many years, and Jim Uvino endorsed Michelle 4 years ago. In your opinion, why did Jim, or do you exactly why did Jim Uvino switch endorsements from the person that used to work for her, the current incumbent, to go outside and actually endorse not a newcomer, but somebody that wants to take out the incumbent?
Well, I will say that Jim Uvino and Larry Powell, both of the former superintendents, are the biggest champions of education in our community. They are very respected educational leaders. That's the first thing I would say. And I'm very honored to have their support and their confidence. And, I always say an endorsement is somebody putting their reputation on the line for you. They both understand what this role entails and what kind of leadership style is needed in this role. It demands a lot of credibility and integrity, but it also demands a very collaborative approach, because you don't necessarily have direct authority over the district superintendents. And the reason why they are endorsing me is they feel that my leadership style is very much needed at the county office at this time. And I will tell you, I know that, having talked to most of the district superintendents out there, that my style will lend itself very well to helping them be able to achieve the goals that they set forth with their governing boards. I'm telling you, Darius, we will have this trajectory. I'm so confident about it. I know that my style will be very successful with our district superintendents. And I know that sounds very almost cocky to say, but I think it has to be said because the stakes are just too high right now. They really are very high.
So what is the difference between you and Michelle and all the things you just talked about in the style of management, in the style of leadership?
I would say, first of all, that I have a better understanding of the role of a district superintendent. It's a very valuable thing to be able to bring to the table, and I can help our district superintendents because of that. But I would say our leadership style is very different based on all the people that I've spoken to as I was doing my research to try and decide if I would enter this race. And I would say her style, and you can ask her yourself, but it's less collaborative and more authoritative. And in this role, collaboration and partnership and being a guidance and a support understanding that district superintendents, while you can come alongside and help them, you actually can't tell them how to do their job. They have that, they can decide to do that themselves. And so to be able to come along, it's very nuanced. They need to be able to welcome you into that conversation.
And then Luann Ramirez McCaslin keeps bringing this up. Her experience in the classroom plus the new California state plan. But your experience in the classroom and actually being a superintendent, can I elaborate on that? Why should that matter in this position?
It's so important because I truly understand, having been a teacher for 20 years, the importance of being well trained and receiving support from your administration, and having all the tools and the resources to be successful. I also understand how important it is to be valued and to have a voice and to be able to have trusted conversations with your administrators. And when I became a school principal, I was very successful at the elementary and the high school level, very successful. In both situations, I had the highest growth in Clovis Unified, and that's hard to do in Clovis Unified. And unlike what Dr. Alvarado grossly and inaccurately claimed, that Clovis West went down 7 API points, I was summoned down to my assistant superintendent at the district office to explain how we went up 11 API points, because it was unprecedented, and it was because of those relationships I had with my teachers, and we were all able to buy in together and invest together. So being a teacher first and knowing what it's like to understand all the challenges that teachers have has been so invaluable for me as a leader, because I listen to my teachers. And when I was a superintendent, the best decision I ever made was I made a decision to go out to every single school. There's 55 schools in Clovis, and there's only 35 weeks in the school year. So it was more than twice a week. I was out at schools, walking in classrooms, walking in kitchens, talking to our classified staff, talking to our teachers, talking to all of our para educators, and listening to their challenges. So when I went back to the district office decision table, I had their voices in my head, and I made much more relevant and meaningful decisions because I understood what it looked like in our classrooms. When they were talking about extreme behaviors, I said, I need you to show me what that looks like. And then it became a lot more relevant to me when I was, allocating budget dollars to programs that would support our teachers. And so that's why I often talk about it, because I'll just say it. The union issue comes up all the time. It's the teachers who decide how they want to be represented. In Clovis Unified, the teachers voted to have the representation they had. I sat at the table. I don't necessarily care what it looks like. I'm still listening. I'm still supporting, because why wouldn't I support our teachers? Our success is dependent upon them. And then when I went to Central Unified, our teachers belonged to CTA, and I sat at the same table and honestly had the same conversations and get the same sense of valuing our teachers that I did in Clovis. During my short time in Central, I also visited every single school and did what I did in Clovis, was bring a board member with me so the board members could hear all the challenges and they could see what our teachers were dealing with in the classroom, so that when I asked them to support them, the board members could relate to it too.
That was a great explanation. Thank you for that. I have a couple of questions, and I know Bill is going to have a question for you. What would you do if you were superintendent of schools, knowing all the data on Fresno Unified, which I'm sure you do because you've been watching Unfiltered and reading GV Wire, all the math. Brown and black kids are the worst performers at Fresno Unified. Their math scores and they cannot do math at grade in the 75 to 90%, 85% range. English or reading is slightly better, but it's in the 70s. Cannot read at grade. What would you do if you were in the superintendent of schools for Fresno County, what would you do with Fresno Unified today?
Well, the first thing I would make sure I do is make sure I have a positive professional relationship with the superintendent, because as I mentioned earlier, the superintendent can all of a sudden be very busy, and it doesn't help us if I can't sit down at the table and talk. And then I would sit down and talk, and obviously we don't even need to gather the data. We know what the data looks like, but talk about the systems that are in place, to share some of the strategies that I know are very successful, and start talking about how systems can be evaluated and improved to support the teachers. Because don't forget, I go back to making sure our teachers feel supported and that they have the tools that they need. I would love for to sit down with Dr. Herr and see, okay, what can we do to improve the toolkits that teachers have. And it's not just academic, because they're dealing with a lot of behavioral issues in the classrooms too. And then start really having robust conversations about what it's going to look like to take Fresno Unified up. And by the way, I will say this. I know that kids have a lot of challenges, and I talked about not using barriers as crutches and excuses. But our students who are Hispanic, or our African American students, or any other students of color, I do not believe that I do not believe that the data. How do I say this? I will say that students of color have every opportunity to be successful as any other student. I do believe that poverty is a bigger barrier if we're going to talk about barriers. But as I mentioned last night, for my entire tenure in Clovis Unified, our Hispanic students outscored their peers in the county by 20 percentage points. And actually our students of poverty did too. So I don't necessarily believe that we can I believe that we can overcome that with the right high quality instruction and the right plans for accountability. I've been watching their board meetings. I've noticed that they've put some systems in place. I think they're going in the right direction. I would love to sit with Misty Herr and Ben Dradi and talk about how we can work together to put together a real plan. But don't forget, they have, or she has, the direct oversight of the district. All I can do is come in and take my years of experience and the credibility that it brings to really work on working together and leverage the support of the county office to help her.
Okay, so a question for you. You control the budget.
Yes.
If you didn't see improvements in Fresno Unified, would you not approve their budget?
So
would you hold that as a card?
So that question came up last night, Darius, and it got very muddy, and so I really want to explain it. If you give me a second to explain it,
we've got the. Can you explain it in 1 minute and not?
Yeah, I will. God, I hate that. 1 minute. There's the LCAP, the Local Control Accountability Plan. We can only disapprove that plan if the district has not adhered to the stipulations of the plan. In other words, that you're spending restricted dollars in the way they're meant to be and things like that. The county superintendent cannot go in and say, this is how I want you to teach reading. They do not have that. I, as a county superintendent, will not have that authority. Then there's the separate issue of the district budget. The district budget, as a county superintendent, I will have oversight to make sure that the budget is being managed for the current year and 2 out years. And if we see that they're not going to be able to pay their bills, then we can disapprove the budget. The law does not allow a county superintendent to say to a district superintendent, I'm not going to approve your budget because your scores are low. The law does not allow that. And I know Dr. Alvarado keeps repeating that, but he would not have that authority. And I know it sounds really, attractive to the voters to say, let's stick it to the district and say we won't approve your budget if you don't teach reading this way, if you don't up your scores. It doesn't work that way. I know it sounds great to voters to say, oh, I'm not going to approve the budget, but actually you would not have that authority. But authority and accountability can also be attained through collaboration and through trust by having a positive influence on a district superintendent. Don't forget, Darius, if you go in and bop somebody on the head and say, this is how I want you to do it, the moment you walk out the door, they'll go back to doing it the way they wanted to do it themselves. So it's all about, when you're trying to affect change, people have to buy in. They have to find their own sense of why and purpose. That's why the relationship with Misty Herr will be very important to me. So when I thought going into this meeting tonight that Misty Herr was endorsing Michelle Campbell-Cofer, I had told Misty when I saw her, whoever you endorse, I really don't care. My relationship with you will be very important, because that is the key to us being able to work together to elevate Fresno Unified.
We're going to put up, okay, so first this is Misty Herr saying that she did not, or Adela Duncan, the CIO for Fresno Unified. And then we have something on Misty Herr, I'm sorry, not Misty, Michelle Cofer's. There we go. Endorsements for 2026. Our fact-checking team at GV Wire went through that. That's Dr. Cofer's, and there it is. Fresno Unified Superintendent Misty Herr is on her list. There it is. Zoomed in. That's again, that's a long list of endorsements, by the way. But let's go to the top of that. This is Dr. Cofer's. Is that correct, Eric? Let's make sure it's endorsements 2026. Dr. Michelle Campbell-Cofer, and then Misty Herr gave us her office gave us a statement today that she actually had not endorsed Dr. Cofer. Misty Herr being the superintendent at Fresno Unified. By the way, I got a message today, came through a third party by ex-superintendent, former superintendent of one of the schools in Fresno County, that to be unnamed. And I'm going to paraphrase that she believes she worked closely with Eimear. Oh, I'm not saying she. This person. It could be a he or a she. Okay? And I just said that just to confuse
You're doing
everybody.
a terrible job on this, I have
Hold
to
on
tell
a second. Let's say it's a he. Okay? It's this person. This person. As a matter of fact, it is a he. Or it's a she. We don't know. Just like you don't know what's in my glass. I'm not going to tell you that it's got low mineral content, has carbonation added, and it's product of Italy. But, and I'm going to paraphrase, is that Eimear has more brains and leadership skills, is smarter. Let me just say that. I don't think we need that on the screen. Just the two of us. Okay, thank you. That Eimear has more leadership skills and is brighter than our current superintendent. And this person, again, we don't know if it's a he or a she, believes that the other candidate may not have the highest. Again, this is their opinion. It's their opinion. It's not my opinion. That you have to just fact check the information that is being shared by all the candidates, Eimear, Michelle, and Johnny. But Eimear just went over a lot of the facts, I should say accusations made of her tenure at Clovis Unified, and we fact checked them and found out that Eimear was actually correct. And Dr. Alvarado's numbers were not. And we hope to have Dr. Alvarado back on this show either next week or the week after to address some of these inconsistencies that we have heard.
Truth is very important. People have said to me, about being a politician. I'm not a politician, and I'm going to be frank, I don't want to be a politician. I will not. One of the things that was very important when I was a district superintendent is when I made errors, or if there was if we messed up on something, I always was truthful to my board and to my team, because people make mistakes, stuff happens. But to misrepresent information is not right. I called up the superintendent of Parlier today because I was up at the summit and we were talking about districts like Parlier who has been in receipt of funds, grants for the Golden State Literacy Plan. And I said to him, my God, you had 80% of your kindergartners. Dr. Alvarado was talking about that last night, and he said that's not true. He said we don't have that kind of data, and he said Dr. Alvarado wasn't overseeing that part of the district. He was in charge of educational services or some other department. And so again, I would love Dr. Alvarado to answer that question. When we asked Dr. Alvarado, I asked him last night, why are none of the superintendents at the 7 districts where you say you were very successful, why are they not endorsing you and supporting you? And he said, I didn't ask them. But as I was driving home, I thought, well, why wouldn't you ask somebody to support you? And it's not like those superintendents are staying neutral, because there's several of them are supporting me. And so, these are questions that we as a community have to ask ourselves. Look, I want the best person to lead our county. If it's not me, I want the person who's in there to be super successful, because there's too much riding on it. And the fact that people have normalized that 6 out of 10 kids aren't reading. That is not normal, Darius. 95% of kids can read. Why are we only having 40%? Half of our districts is closer to 30%. That's 3 out of 10 kids are reading in your class. 7 are not. Can you believe that? That's terrible in what's the 4th largest economy in the world. It should not be like, and here's the sad thing, it doesn't have to be that way. We know how to change it.
That's a really good point. Those are really great remarks. I'm going to come back to you for closing remarks, but Bill McEwen has got a few comments and a few questions. Bill?
Thank you, Darius. So I really don't have a question. I have an answer. For 2 or 3 weeks, you keep saying, why should people care about this? So I'm a big believer in numbers and polls. So if you go to the PPIC poll, people already care about this. We don't have to ask them. The fact of the matter is 51% of Californians say public education has gotten worse over the past 5 years. And hold on, major changes are needed.
Yep.
Not tinkering of the bureaucracy. 51% of California voters say that major changes are needed. Out.
Mic drop. Those are great points. Bill McEwen, thank you for sharing that. And Becky Wharton says the teachers union is only worried about the teachers, not the kids. And I know I asked Dr. Kofer last night if is this true? She has endorsements of the California Teachers Association and the Fresno Teachers Association, and she said yes to both. And people won't change. And sometimes unions, I'm going to say this, we've had FTA folks, Manuel Bonilla, I'm not sure Lewis has been on this program. And there's a lot of things that GBWire shares values with Fresno Teachers Association, but there's other things that we disagree with. And at the end of the day, for us as an organization, GBWire, Granville Homes, and really for our community, it should be whatever gets to a better educational outcome of our kids. I keep on going back to Trustee Susan Wittrup. She said it multiple times on this program and from the dais. She goes, listen, you want to bring an item to me, it's got to be fiscally responsible. But if it if enhances the educational outcome of our kids, the answer is yes. If it doesn't, the answer is no and maybe no. She's going to need more information, but it really comes to that. She's not concerned about union issues. She understands that teachers have to be taken care of, well taken care of. Some teachers in some parts of town have a much higher responsibility because the workload is more complex, more complicated. She's talked about, the principals at some of the schools, which are really difficult demographic, need to be compensated appropriately. And I don't know how Eimear feels about that, but bottom line is educational outcome of our kids. And I think that's what you were talking about, Eimear, and this came up multiple times last night. If those of you that didn't get a chance to watch the forum last night, I encourage you to go back to gbwire.com. You'll see the whole thing and several clips of it in 2-minute clips. Well, Eimear on some of her answers was more than 2 minutes on some of that.
You gave the others way more time than me, Darius. I'm going to push back on that.
Okay. And, fair. That's fair. Anyhow, let's see any other comments. Luann Ramirez McCaslin. I hope that I'm spelling her name, pronouncing it appropriatly.
You are.
Remember the FCSS, Fresno County Superintendent of Schools, school system is also a district. What about that, Eimear? Do you have any comments on that? So the Fresno County, I guess, school system is also a district.
Is she asking? Is it just
no? She's saying that. Remember that FCSS is. What does that mean? Is also a school. Is a district.
So what she's saying is, we used to always talk about 32. So what it is that under Jimmy Avino's leadership, the county opened their own charter school called CTEC. It's a wonderful school downtown. And then also the county charters some other, or authorizes some other charter schools like the Global Academy, for example. And so they have their own little district as well. But in actual fact, the county superintendent, for the most part, has very few students. They have, they've got some students with special needs. I believe there's 84 classrooms, and they have the students who attend the court school, and then they have the students who attend CTEC. So that is its, that's the number of students that Dr. Kofer is directly responsible for. As opposed to, like some of us like me who had like 45,000. And Bill was talking about the fact that people care. When it really boils down to why I'm running in this race, I was enjoying, I wasn't retired. I came out of if I win this race, I'll be coming out of retirement. And so really, why am I doing that? Like, why am I doing that? And the reason is because I care. Like, it's emotional for me. I get upset thinking about any child sitting in 4th grade today who is uncomfortable because they just don't have the ability to read, and how it's affecting their understanding of science and math and all the struggles. I talked to a young man at Fresno State last week who came from one of our rural districts, and he was saying, my whole life has been a struggle. And I told him, what if somebody had taught you to read like in kindergarten and 1st grade, because we don't wait till 3rd grade to teach them to read. And he said it would have been a game changer for me. But he's just one of thousands and thousands of students. Last year, 15,000 3rd graders took the 3rd grade language arts test here in Fresno County. 8,751, I think it is. They did not meet standards. So all those kids are now going into a system that's going to, they're just going to continue to struggle through the system. So like Bill was saying, there's urgency. We can't be going like this. We have to do something very dramatic, and other states are having those dramatic results. Here's the other thing. I've never shied away from being the lone voice or looking at things with a kind of a innovative lens. And in this whole campaign, every time I told you that I've spoken at 200 meetings now, and I am the only person who's talked about the science of reading or the Golden State. Do you know that I sat down with a couple of colleagues and said, am I missing the boat? Why are my opponents not even talking about this? I started wondering, was I missing something? But when I was up at Sacramento today, and I saw people from other county offices of ed and people from actually a variety of groups all sitting around the table, I was able to ask questions. I was able to engage. I had a chat with Tony Thurmond today about it. I mean, we need to be up there in the thick of it, so that, because I was asking them, what about this and what about that I'm not seeing on all these wonderful slides they were showing us. And so I established relationships, and I feel I can pick up the phone and talk to people. This is what life is about. It's about establishing relationships. I spent every single week of my 6 years as a superintendent on an advocacy call once a week, every Thursday, 11 o'clock. And do you know that I was talking to people like Alma Succi? You know who used to help me a lot was Jim Patterson. I've heard that he's not doing so well. It makes me very sad. But he did a lot of work when he was up on the floor. He would take our concerns up to Sacramento, and we got things done. We were able to get money for districts and for special education through our advocacy. And so that's very important. And if I do, I have a feisty side, as you probably have seen, it's come out in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I've
but
seen a lot of it.
I drove up today. I was up in 2.5 hours. I was there for 2 hours, and then I drove back another 2.5 hours. But
Okay,
it was
hold on,
worth
hold on.
every bit of it.
Oh, hold on. Let me ask you this. You said you went. Okay, hold on. Let's get both of us on. You said you drove up for a 2-hour meeting and drove back.
Yep. I walked into my house here at 20 to 6, and I did I sat down, did a mic check with your employee.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to end with this. You talked about literacy a lot last night, and we all know without the science of without knowing how to read, nothing else matters. Trustee Wittrup has brought this up. Susan Wittrup has brought this up many times. She's working hard with Fresno Unified to have a literacy program. I want you to answer 2 questions, and this will be kind of part of the summation. And please, we only have 2 minutes, which means we have 3, but I've got to tell you 2.
Okay.
Tell us how you would hold these 31 districts accountable for literacy, and also tell us about how you rolled out literacy when you first became an educator in Ireland. So pick whichever one you want to do first, but I want to know I want the audience to understand your passion about literacy and making sure everybody can read. Your passion comes through. I mean, it's you're almost hitting us in the face.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
What your mission is about. But explain to the audience and to the parents that are listening to this tonight, and they're going to be several thousand more parents watching parts of this program by this weekend. Your experience on teaching kids how to read, and how much of that you would use if you became superintendent of schools for Fresno County, to make sure all 31 districts are not going to leave our kids behind.
So the first thing I'll say is the science of reading research says that 95% of kids can and will learn to read. I experienced that for 20 years. My kids all read. And don't forget, my first 10 years was in Ireland, and those kids had to learn the Irish language also, the Gaelic language. So and if you ask any teacher, any new teacher coming out of teacher preparation right now, do you feel confident that you could have 95% of your kids reading? They will, if they're honest, they'll say, not really. And places like Fresno and Unified and Clovis have, a team that we can provide professional development. But when you go out to places like Kerman and Mendota and all these other rural places, they don't have the same capacity. So the county office can be a huge source of professional development. And I know that last night it came up, and it seemed to me that professional development was being measured in how many days teachers come in for or receive it. It's a professional development needs to be evaluated in terms of its quality and its impact. That's how it should be measured. That's how I always do it. And so I want to sit down with district superintendents and say, okay, you've sat with your board and you've agreed that you want to raise reading by 5%. Would you like me to help you with that? How could my office at the county office, how could my budget maybe help you with that? And then sit down and have that open and honest conversation. You can't bop people on the head. That's not how you hold accountability. And it's also not how you affect change. Because as I said, if you go in with your whip and you say, thou shalt do this, what will happen is people don't develop the sense of purpose and investment and buy-in. But when you have a meaningful conversation and people go, you know what? I see what you mean. We could do this. Okay, let's put a plan together. And it's going to look different in Kerman and Selma and Fresno Unified. It's going to look different in Pine Ridge, right? Where there's only 77 students. So I want to sit down with each district superintendent and help them achieve their goals, because I guarantee you no board in Fresno County is saying it's okay to go up 1%. They're not. And when I said last night, a rising tide lifts all ships. Our rising average, which is really only 1.1%, it's not raising all of our districts. Half of them have a significantly higher number than 60% not meeting standards. And so those kids deserve it too, Darius. They all deserve to have a shot at results. And that was why I chose Eimear for results. I was very intentional around that. Because if we're not getting results for our kids, in my opinion, it's just kumbaya. We're going and we're playing sports and we're doing drama. That's all great. But if they're not able to read, we're doing them a disservice.
Great point.
So that's what I'm going to do. And I will do it. If I get in, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come up with my own numbers, and I'm going to hold myself accountable to the community in terms of our county average, and making sure that every district in the county is part of that average, not just a few. Because
what if a superintendent said, okay, this makes sense, but you know what? No, we're okay. Kind of get out of our business.
And that will very likely happen. And do you know when the next year, when they're looking at their colleagues whose scores are going up, they will, it'll be a conversation. That's what change, how you affect change, Darius. Not everybody will go in the first round, but as people see things, they go, oh, it is possible. And some people, everybody arrives at that place at a different time.
Okay,
and that's how it works.
For you. Would you put on the screen so parents and everybody really, especially business owners and parents in Fresno County, can see the report cards of all 31 school districts on your website, and then see a graph that shows the improvements from year to year? Is there something like that up there right now, or no?
Well, I don't believe that there is on one document. I actually have taken the time to put all that information, only because I like to be able, as I've gone out to meet district superintendents, I like to have at a glance to see how they're doing, so we can have a meaningful conversation. Because I've been going around since last September, meeting with all the superintendents, and we've had these conversations already. I've already been talking about this with them, and that if I become their county superintendent, that what could be and how we might work together, and it looks different, Darius, in every district, because every district has different challenges and different board expectations, and it's very nuanced. And like I said, working with a school board is a very nuanced experience. And the very fact that I have board members from Clovis and Central Unified School Boards endorsing me is a testament to the fact that I can work with a variety of people. And I appreciated Nandeep Singh saying what he said, because it was hard to go in to I didn't know anybody. I didn't know one person in Central Unified, but they are an amazing group of people, and I had a fabulous experience over 4 months, and I still have many friends there and stay connected with them.
Great. Okay, I'm going to read a couple of comments, and then I'm going to ask you a question about SEDA, because Fresno Unified is trying to make sure SADA doesn't happen, which is a southeast development area. And Central Unified just voted unanimously to oppose SADA because they're concerned that if SADA expands, SADA, which is Sanger Unified and Clovis Unified, they're doing so much better than Central, I'm assuming, for sure, than Fresno, that parents will actually move to Clovis Unified and Sanger Unified and live there and have their kids go to those schools. And they're concerned that, well, you know what? People are not going to want to have their kids continue to stay at Central Unified and Fresno Unified. But so I want you to address that very quickly. But I want to read a couple of comments.
I believe that the reason that Central.
Hold on, I'm going to read a couple of comments while you're thinking about, because again, we're going to distill that to 30 seconds now, and you're going to be on the clock. Okay.
Oh God, you're
Wilma Tom Hashimoto. As a private citizen and retired educator, I strongly believe Eimear understands how to interpret data and use the data to drive the educational plan for the county. I had the honor to work for former Superintendent Larry Powell and Jim Uvino, and we collaboratively worked together to remove educational barriers to assist all school districts. Eimear will continue with that vision for a positive trajectory. Actually, I know Wilma, and she's done a lot of fantastic work in our community, in our county, helping raise money for a lot of different folks, nonprofits, including CASA. Luann Ramirez McCaslin, thank you for following this calling, Dr. O'Brien. That is a difference. That is a difference. This is a calling for her, not a job or a professional goal to meet. Okay, so now you've had some time to think about the answer. And please, I am going to time you.
I'll give you the 30-second tweet.
Okay.
First of all, one of the roles of a superintendent is to make sure that every child in your district who lives in your district boundaries has a seat. We have to have a school. Like legally, we have to provide schools. That's why we have to plan ahead and buy land and build, right? The role of a superintendent, I never sat in any planning meetings at any of city council meetings, where they're planning. I'm not a city planner. And so it's very important that superintendents stick to their responsibility. They have to look to see what are the plans. I'm never in that room listening to the budgets. Mike Kerbasi was talking about, I don't know, all sorts of things tonight. That's not my world. I'm glad that he's doing it, but I'm not a city planner. When we saw that SADA was on the books to build, 45,000 homes on 9,000 acres, I think it was.
Yeah,
something
that's correct.
huge.
You're correct.
Yeah,
you're correct.
We saw that 40% of that development was in Clovis Unified and 60% in Sanger. So of course we're going to go, oh gosh, yeah, we better be prepared for that. It takes 10 years to build a high school, from architecture to building to opening. And so we held off for quite a while because we wanted to wait and see, was this happening? There was, there were different evolutions of SADA. And we got to the point where we knew that we were running out of room. But Clovis East had 5,000 students, and we looked at all the other options we had to move boundaries, but we were full in Clovis Unified. So we got to the point that we had to build that school. And we built it large enough to accommodate our kids and the potential kids that could be in SADA. So okay. I am not a city planner, and I will not insert myself into that conversation because I respect the fact that they have all the information, the budget, how much it costs.
Okay.
So I'm not a city manager, and I respect Jerry Dyer. I read somewhere he said, and I am not a superintendent, so I'm not going to go in and tell you what to do.
Got it. I think your 30 seconds was up 10 seconds ago, but okay. And no, and Jerry Dyer is one of the folks that has endorsed you. Is that correct?
And I'm not saying because he's endorsing me. I've said it about every,
No, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. You have a long list of endorsements as well. Let me just, let's see. You have Jerry Dyer, Lisa Smith-Gamp, Paul Dictos, council members, Mike Rabasi, Tyler Maxwell, in Clovis, Matt Basco, who was a former police chief, and almost everybody Clovis Unified, including Bob Nelson, the former superintendent at Fresno Unified.
And
the list goes on.
two former superintendents in Sanger, and the superintendent who hired Dr. Alvarado in Selma and as her chief academic officer, and then he worked there for a total of 8 months, and she is endorsing me. So I just feel it's important to look at the endorsements. And one name you left off last night is Larry Powell. And I just wanted to make sure, because he's been extremely supportive, and he's one of the people in this city and county that I respect more than he's up there on the list.
You know what?
Yeah.
I didn't see his name on your endorsement list. That's why I didn't bring it up.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, that must have been an oversight, because Larry Powell's been on my endorsement list. He's been on it since the beginning. I don't know
Okay,
why.
well, we didn't see it there. Maybe
I'll
maybe
double check that something didn't happen. I haven't looked at my list for a while.
I'm
But
gonna
yeah,
I'm gonna say something here. We've been here an hour and 45 minutes. Typically, the show is over an hour. Sometimes it goes 15 or 20 minutes over, and we drop a lot of viewers after about a 1 hour mark. You folks dropped off right about the top of the hour, but it's been held steady for the last 45 minutes, which is really unheard of and
Wow.
unfiltered.
I-
So you know what? I want to thank the audience,
yeah.
thank the viewers, because that shows an incredible amount of interest in the future of our community, which is really based upon the education of our kids. And as Bill McEwen said it, people care about this. People care about education, and they want to see change. They're tired of half of the kids not reading. What did you just say? 7 out of 10 kids at an average school. I don't know what grade it was.
I said it in about half of our districts. Yeah, I have
Half
the
of-
list.
Half of the districts, 7 out of 10 kids cannot read at grade. Is that what you said?
Yep.
That's really a major problem, that we
Yeah.
just keep on looking the other way. Then we ask ourselves, why do we have more crime? Why do we have more unemployment? Why do we not attract the right companies to our
Yes.
area?
Yes.
And why do we not give a mobility, economic prosperity and mobility to our citizenry? It really goes down to education, and of course the home, the household, what happens inside the home, the socioeconomic issues, which is difficult to change, but the trajectory of somebody's life changes with education. And if you
Yeah,
can,
and by the way, another one of my priorities that we haven't had a chance to talk about is about
we won't have time.
educating
We won't have
parents.
time to
I
talk
won't.
about
Educating parents is very, very important, because they are part of the whole equation. And I was very disappointed that the county office under Dr. Kofer's leadership, they have disbanded the Parent Services Center,
Oh,
which
wait a minute,
played a huge role.
Hold on. I wasn't going to get into that. Repeat that very succinctly again, please, for our
I
audience.
was very disappointed that under Dr. Kofer's leadership, the Parent Services Center, which was a department that provided education to parents all around the county on a vast menu of topics, such as how to access technology, how to help your child read, all these different things. And they had a staff that spoke like 7 languages. That was disbanded, and it's a huge loss, because our smaller districts need that kind of support.
Why was it disbanded?
I actually don't know. I've never asked Dr. Kofer, but I was told by the person who led that department that she came in one day and told him that it was no longer going to be. And that could be a good question to ask her. But
We're going to.
It's no longer there. And
Okay.
to me, that's a big loss, because parents if we want to they have to be part of the plan too. We need to get parents on board. And I was very involved, and Mike Carbasi knows this. When I was at Pinedale, we over a series of a couple of years, we devised something called the Pinedale Plan. Mike will remember this. And we had kids from Pinedale Elementary going to Stanford University by the time we were finished, and coming back and talking to the parents. And we had a parent academy, and it's still there.
That's very impressive. Let me ask this question. Would you be open to having another forum?
Yep. I'm
Okay.
happy to talk about this topic anytime. And I don't profess to have all the answers, but I am very passionate.
With your opponents, with the other
Yes,
two.
I'll talk
Okay.
about, I'm very happy to talk anytime.
Okay.
I do think we need to do that. Like Bill McEwen said, this is all those signs we see out there. To me, this is the most important election issue, that we're talking about the education of our kids. And that's why I've been so upset about the amount of misleading information that is out there and designed to, number one, discredit my, and I'm just going to say, I'm proud of my reputation, but I was told going into this people would make up stuff about me, and I didn't believe it until I saw it. But to discredit my reputation, and then to also equally use this calculation to inflate others. Dr. Alvarado is using this mechanism to inflate his reputation in the eyes of our community.
But you're gonna have a chance if they both agree. You're gonna have a chance to share that.
I would love
to
have that chance. Yes.
Okay, Bill McEwen, final thoughts.
It's at the forefront of the community.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that.
I was going to ask for your final thoughts, Eimear, but I don't think I'm going to.
I'll just say I care enough about this to go through an election, which is a very grueling process that I never thought I was going to be doing. So that tells you how much I care, because yeah, it's a whole thing going through an election. Do you see how tired I look on this screen? I'm very tired, but I'm still going.
You drove, let me see, you drove over 330, almost 350 miles today, and you're back here to help talk to folks about
it's important.
Educating our kids. And by the way, Becky Wharton just put a comment up. I will take an Eimear sign. Where can people get your signs?
Tell her to email me at info@eimearforresults.com. And I'm excited to see what my website person has done with all the information that we talked about last night. So I've also created an easy step-by-step guide for our community so that they can do their own fact checking. That's really important, because don't take my word for it. Go check it out yourself. I like people to be able to access. The state database is remarkably easy to access. They've done that on purpose so people can do that.
And of course, Trustee Susan Wittrup of Fresno Unified put up a 10-point checklist on how to evaluate all three candidates that went up on GVWire yesterday. It's on there still for folks that want to take a look at that. Again, I want to, on behalf of all of us at GVWire, thank you, Dr. O'Brien, for joining us tonight. Bill, my co-host, thank you for that incredible point, short, brief, but about the PPIC poll, which if it's not on, I'm sure it will be on GVWire tomorrow for further further review by our audience and our viewers. And really, thank you to the viewers of this program and the folks in Fresno County that care about education, care about the future of this community, and care about the future of our kids. Most powerful, as Nelson Mandela put it so many decades ago, education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. And let's make sure we get the right person in that office that can help guide us to more than 1%. I'm going to say this to Michelle, hopefully next Tuesday. And that person may be Michelle, but she needs to prove that she has the ability to make a major shift in the way the 31 school districts are being managed. And we're going to watch this very, very closely over the next few weeks. People will start voting this week. You've made an incredible case, Dr. O'Brien.
Thank you.
Why you should be that person that we should all vote for to help lead the county in the efforts to help better educate our kids. With that, thank you for showing up tonight. We hope to see you before June 2nd.
I'll come on again with my opponents if everybody is willing to do that. I'm happy to do it.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. O'Brien. Thank you to the audience, and of course to the GVWire Unfiltered team, Paul Marshall, Eric Martinez, and I think a few other folks. Jaws Taylor may be here this evening as well, and of course my co-host, Bill McEwen. Good night, and see you all next Tuesday.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.